So you can tell us the latest development as the chief advisor, economic advisor of Azimio side as well. I don't know how you actually came up with the final team, but you can actually also just give us a hint.
Well, thanks, and good morning to all of you.
Good morning.
So, yeah, I mean, Patrick is right. Cost of living is a primary issue. And by the way, it's not just a Kenyan issue. I think this is what we all need to accept. Cost of living is bothering most countries in the world. But how governments what governments do in order to manage the cost of living and keep the escalation down, that's where the difference is. And I think in terms of prowess of management of public affairs, that's where you see the difference. Because you will see small economies, like Seychelles, for example, where inflation is around 4%. And it is a much smaller economy, dependent on tourism. You will see Eritrea and Djibouti, just our neighbors up north here.
Yes.
Again, inflation quite low, and these are much smaller economies. But of course, you'll also see some countries, Ghana, where they are also struggling, perhaps at the same level as Kenya. You'll see some countries like Zimbabwe, where, of course, inflation has been a major problem for a long time. So it's about the choices that government makes as it is managing the economy. Now, a couple of months ago, there was on social media a video by, Ghanaian vice president explaining that, look, you can do all the propaganda you want, but ultimately, the exchange rate will betray you, because you can't intimidate the exchange rate to move the way you want. The exchange rate is driven by the fundamentals. What are you importing? What are you exporting? And you can see what is happening with our own shilling now at around 150 shillings to the dollar.
And it's bound to be rising.
And it's,
certain
economists, including myself, believe that we will probably 170 is in sight. 170. And of course, we can now go into the debate, was it overvalued to begin with or not? But the point is, the shilling continues to lose ground. And with it, now you go back to the point Patrick made. Remember, we import food. We import rice, we import sugar, we import maize, we import wheat. A lot of these crops, like maize and wheat particularly, we import from Ukraine, from Russia, and so on. But because we import so much food, as the shilling becomes weaker, then the Kenya shilling, or the local cost of it, of the import, goes by the same margin. So although, of course, we've been focusing on VAT and the doubling of VAT, probably the depreciation of the shilling is doing way more damage in terms of increasing the ultimate cost of food and cost of fuel in the country. Again, as he said, of course, all our oil is imported, and petroleum products are in everything because of transportation, and therefore, when the prices of petroleum go up, what you see is that the cost of everything else in the economy goes up.
It's bound to float up.
So what my own expectation, and certainly my advice my technical advice to the committees negotiating, is that first of all, and I agree with the cartoon, you have to leave your whatever preconceived notion at the door, and let us sit down and look at this thing. Requires a very delicate mix of policy. It requires actually some really tough decisions on the part of government. And one hopes that the leadership on the government side is going to take those tough decisions. Otherwise, we as Mudavadi said some months ago, we are in for 3, 4, 5 years of a very hard time.
And talking of Mudavadi, we have many people faulting the AG of misadvising Mudavadi on his role with with the PSC as well. We shall be looking at that as well much later. But let's hear from Bunyasi Sakwa, especially with the talks. What is happening across also in Uganda when we look at the anti-gay act that was passed by the president? We have now World Bank saying they're not doling out their loans to Uganda. That is what we have on the front page of the Daily Monitor in Uganda this morning.
Thanks a lot, Debal. I want to start with the Uganda case. My colleagues have covered the other issues broadly. I hope that people wake up to the reality of the world, as it were. When Bobby Wine was struggling the last election, maybe two, and deaths and so on, I think Americans might have said something low-key out there. Yeah. World Bank may have been largely quiet because it's not in their domain to be commenting deeply in those. But on LGBTQR, whatever the number...